Okay, I'd like to call to order the Board of Park Commissioners meeting, October 21st. It's 9 a.m. We are in person at the Parks headquarters in Eden Park. With me is Commissioner Brad Lindner, and joining us via Zoom is Commissioner Susan Castellini and myself, Jim Getz. We represent a quorum, so we will start the meeting. First thing I want to do is acknowledge and recognize Commissioner Castellini was unanimously confirmed yesterday by the Cincinnati City Council for another term of membership on the Board of Park Commissioners. So we welcome you for another turn, Susie, and your dedication to parks is greatly appreciated and evidenced this morning by your participation at least 2 or 3 hours earlier than what we are here in Cincinnati. So we appreciate you being with us this morning and look forward to working with you on another term here with the Park Board.
My joy.
Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we have received as commissioners public comments online dealing with both the Riverfront Boat Dock as well as Clifton Community Dog Park. We do have one speaker lined up for this morning that's signed in. So if Melissa Reese could come up, and you have the floor for 2 minutes. So we'd just like to welcome you and let us know what's on your mind.
Hi, definitely wasn't expecting to get up. Probably should just email this.
We're glad you're here.
My name is Melissa Reese. I am living on Hill in Cincinnati, Ohio, and I appreciate everything the Parks has done for the city. I just moved back about 1.5 years ago. I was in the service, and to come back home and see how beautiful the city is and all the plants and stuff around the city, it's an actual very wonderful thing to see. I was walking my dog a couple months ago, actually, and walking past the green space in Bond Hill, and I saw that it had been neglected. And I made several calls here to ask you all, not you all, just whoever, to come in and beautify the area the way that I see the areas in Hyde Park, in North Avondale, and OTR. And to you guys' credit, you guys do come in and cut the grass and trim it up and remove the trash. But when I get out the highway, when I get out from work, I would like to see a beautiful green space and not a neglected area. And so I'm asking for you guys to do something about that, because we deserve in our community too to see those same plant setups and stuff like that. And I'm asking that something be done.
Thank you. Well, we very much appreciate your comments. And in fact, we had a special meeting of the Park Board a couple of weeks ago talking about developing our strategic plan for the next few years. And I can tell you that one of the key areas that we want to focus on is equity throughout our park system, and look at some standards of care for all of our parks that we would apply across the city. So it is something that we definitely will be looking at and is a concern of ours as well. So thank you for your comments. And I'll pass this specific comment along to our director, and we will look into it. But thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Okay, our first agenda item is we have a police report from Captain Swingley. So I'm going to turn the table over to you, the podium over to you.
He didn't approve the minutes.
So I'm Captain Dennis Swingley, and I'm the Parks Board Liaison with the Cincinnati Police Department. So my agenda today is first talk about how the data evolved over this past year from me starting as a Parks Board Liaison.
Thank you, Steve.
I'm going to provide some stats, overall stats, data specific stats on parks and provide some updates on incidents that happen within the park. So first, I've been working with Deputy Director Jenny Mobley to increase the accuracy of the data within the parks. When I first started, I was getting the data from our crime analysis problem solving unit, and they would do an overlay of the parks and the surrounding area of the parks. So the data was a little skewed for like Washington Park. Some things would happen at Fulton Race, not in the park. So some of the data was skewed. So I've been working with Deputy Director Mobley to get that data up to date. She turned me on to Mr. Matthew Cabona, who is excellent in working with our CAPS, crime analysis, problem solving people to get this data where we need to be. So what we're looking at is reactive calls for service, people within the parks that something happens and they pick up the cell phone and they call, and that data is captured in this report. So comparing the third quarter from 2020 to 2021, citywide, there was over 74,000 calls for service in the city of Cincinnati. There's a 1.4% decrease in 2021, third quarter. Citywide parks, in 2020, for the third quarter, there was 1,040 calls for service. And in 2021, 1,223 calls for service, which constitutes a 17% increase in calls for service of parks this quarter. Why is that? We believe that COVID, people are out enjoying the parks, and more people in the parks, so that constitutes some more calls for service for the police. The largest decrease for calls for service is McAvoy Park. I believe that's as a result of police attention and the Parks Department giving attention to this park to reduce calls for service. So the types of calls for service in third quarter continue to be 911 calls for like theft, drug use, investigations on disorderly people, and hazards that officers encounter within the park. So just to go over the top 10 parks for calls for service. Number one is a waterfront park down along the waterfront there, Central Parkway, which is the corridor. Most people don't think of that as a park, but that is almost like a scenic route coming into our city. So a lot of people call for accidents and they see things on the side of the street. And so that results in a lot of calls for service. Mount Airy Forest is number three. Cincinnati Zoo, the Botanical Garden. A lot of those calls for service for like disorderly people within the park and thefts in the parking lot. Smale Park is number five. Fountain Square, Eden Park, Washington Park, Mount Echo Park, and number 10 is Stansbury Park. So just give you some stats on the top three parks. Waterfront Park, there were 119 calls for service in the third quarter. So compared to 2020 to 2021, that's a 13% increase. And compared to calls for service from last quarter to this second quarter to the third quarter, there's a 53% increase. There's more people getting out and enjoying the parks. Central Parkway had 99 calls for service. Again, it's a large increase as more people report coming back to work, going downtown. Mount Airy Forest had 84 calls for service in this third quarter, and a slightly decreased from 2021. But from second quarter this year to third quarter this year is an 18% increase calls for service. So I'd like to update the board on some incidents that come to your attention. There was a lady who was attacked in Mount Airy Forest. A very serious incident, but she was able to fight this person off. So being park liaison, I reached out to Commander of District 5 who increased patrols through all the daytime hours. So we got cops in the parks doing direct patrols in Mount Airy Forest. There's a description relayed to all the officers, and they have to fill out a form when they go there to make sure everything's covered. At Stanberry Park came to our attention. Homeless people were using the pavilion, charging their cell phones, sleeping, and being unsightly. So increased patrols have reduced homeless persons in using the pavilion. Then Smale Park, as you know, we had some shootings and unsupervised youth during the summer, but the police chief has implemented these high visibility patrols in our civil disturbance response teams. Teams are like 10 officers going down to the park to make sure everyone is obeying the law and using the parks as they should. So that's it for my presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Captain, as you're thinking through policing in our parks, what is the main concern or one of the highest concerns that you have as far as maintaining law and order in our parks?
The safety for everyone. Families go down and they want to go there and enjoy the parks. So I think it's good that we have good signage. So people who go there know who to call. Parks Department bring concerns to the Park Department. They can always know they can call 911. And we use this data. All the district commanders have geographical areas of their responsibility. So calls for service for parks comes to their attention and they adjust their patrol allocation of officers to the safety of personnel. People enjoy the parks. So safety is number one.
A question I have on, you mentioned Stanberry Park and people living in the park or camping out in the park. We've had reports of that throughout our system, that happening a lot. What is it that we could be or should be doing in conjunction with CPD to help with that issue?
Well, first and foremost is to call us, let us know, bring it to our attention, bring it to my attention, then I can relay that to the District 5 commanders. We have a neighborhood liaison unit. These officers go out to these homeless camps and take a look, talk to these people, see if there's any drugs or alcohol or mental issues that maybe we can help provide, or be a liaison with UC, get the mobile health van parked there and invite them in and get them to the resources they need so they're not living in the park. So get them housing and the services they need to lead productive lives.
Was that pretty successful?
There's a lot of recidivism, but as you know, different parts of the city, homeless camps pop up. And sometimes when we push them off the streets or from under the bridges, sometimes they go to the parks. So they go back in the woods. And so it's incumbent on everyone to let us know, and then we can get down there and address the issue.
And I'm assuming that our staff are kind of informed as to how to approach these in a safe and effective manner, these situations, so that there's no potential harm coming to our folks.
Yes, yes, we work very well, park board boards.
Commissioner Castellini, any questions you've got?
Yes, just one question. At least in the press, it's always stating how understaffed the police department is. How understaffed are you? How many more policemen would you like to have?
I believe we're down about 100 officers, but right now we have a recruit class. We're going to be coming out in February, and we have about 15 or so lateral officers in the academy that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks. So we're addressing the issue of officers, and then the chief reallocates officers' assignments to for calls for service or priority runs, type like that.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you. Received, all the commissioners received a detailed report, and I appreciate the detail and the information. It's quite good information for us, and it helps us to see where our areas of focus need to be. So we appreciate the work. And I want to thank Jenny Mobley too, and working with the CPD and coordinating our efforts to maintain safety in our parks.
Yes,
so thank you.
Very helpful working together to get what you need.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Everyone have a great day.
Thank you. Before we move on to Jenny, I did recognize that I forgot an agenda item of approving our minutes from September the 16th. So I assume everybody's had an opportunity to review those. Are there any changes, corrections, additions to our minutes? If not,
Our metrics are bad. What are we doing?
If not,
Move to accept.
we have a motion to accept, and I will second that motion.
Oh, you had Forrest.
Because we have a member participating remotely, we unfortunately will have to take our voting by roll call. So Mary, if you will call a roll on this.
President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes,
Uh,
Commissioner Linner,
Yes.
Thank you. So our minutes are approved. We'll move on then. Jenny or Terry, you want-
function of use. Are you talking about the police?
I'm talking about the police report, if that were.
Commissioner Castellini, you're not muted, just so you know.
Oh, sorry about that.
Yes, I've asked our Deputy Director, Jenny Mobley, just to put together very brief comments to you about what Captain Swingley referred to as not just police efforts, policing efforts, but also some environmental efforts that our team is making to improve safety in our parks.
Yes, so I believe at the last board meeting, you all had asked for a report on litter control and vehicles migrating into our green spaces. So litter control is certainly one of our top time consuming tasks that we do within the park board, and crews have seen an excessive amount of litter recently throughout our system. In the past, we have gone back and forth to either placing more cans or removing the cans altogether to try to determine which is the best balance for that. And although we know that we are not going to, I'm sorry, you can go to the next slide. Oh, I have the clicker, don't I?
You do.
Thank you. Although we know we will never be 100% litter free, our staff certainly are meeting this winter to come up with a comprehensive plan. We are going to be reviewing can placement, disposal of the actual waste for either going out to Rumpke in order to dispose of that, or working with Rumpke to deliver roll-off boxes in certain locations. We have had a little glitch with public services, and they certainly have mentioned that we no longer will be able to use our West Fork location for our everyday trash disposal of our pup trucks. So we are trying to work through that plan as well. In addition to that, we are looking at an education campaign. Our communications team has already started this campaign, has shared many videos so far, as well as posts explaining what the hazards are for our litter being left, as you see in this picture on the slide here, being left either after a party or someone enjoying the park. And we think one of the key components is education itself. Our crews certainly recognize that, you know, we need to provide clean and reliable spaces for everybody to enjoy. But they would also like to be able to focus their attention on other things such as pressure washing and string trimming and you know, a full cleaning of the restrooms to make sure that every space is enjoyable. So with the plan that we are looking at, again, we are joining forces with the communications team to try to help educate the public, not only what this means for the next party that would like to enjoy a space like this, but also understand that the animals are becoming reliant on this food source that is being left behind, and try to help control that as well. Another one of our concerns are vehicles within our green spaces. This is something that we have also seen an increase. Vehicles driving in the grass, whether they are cars, ATVs, motorcycles, and this is certainly a huge safety concern for us. Certainly, we are looking at our signage as well as marked parking spaces. They are being reviewed to make sure that the patrons understand where they are supposed to be placing their vehicles and not driving through the grass. However, our focus right now is going to be on park barriers. Some types of barriers that we are looking at are wooden posts, metal bollards, already fallen trees or logs, if you will, to make it more of a natural setting, trees, and in some cases planters, to try to mitigate individuals from being able to approach our green spaces and stay on the paved surfaces. Right now, our focus is going to be on the following areas. First, we have McFarland Woods in the top left-hand corner there. That is the overview or aerial view of McFarland Woods. This is a very obsolete location. As you see in the bottom two pictures, we already have some posts there that are right now easily removed. So we are going to secure those posts a little bit stronger and then look at some of the logs that I spoke about as a second barrier. We believe this location is hit hard because again, it is a very obsolete location and people are not driving through there all the time to watch individuals removing those posts. So that is the approach we are going to try at McFarland. But I don't know if you can see in these pictures, but there is a shelter way back in the right-hand corner. And people are driving through this area just to park by the shelter itself, not only to unload and load, but also just to enjoy their day. The next one is in Mount Airy Forest at the Oval or Area 13. And I just provided some visuals for you. The approach we are going to do here is also logs that we are going to line around this oval space to prevent vehicles to be able to drive through the grass area, as well as some marked spaces to show where the parking should be. Next, we have McAvoy Park. This one is a little bit more sophisticated in our methods. As you see in the top right-hand corner, there are two entrances to McAvoy Park. And what we are looking at, if you look in the top right-hand corner, our picture there is a playground. And so near that playground, we are looking at actually closing off that entrance and making it into a cul-de-sac. This will need some design work as well as a contractor to help install wooden posts, as well as creating that cul-de-sac so that we can create a larger green space and prevent vehicles from driving all the way through. This area here is problematic because the two entrances itself kind of makes it a drive-through drug area for individuals to be able to enter one and get out easily through the second exit. So by keeping that one entrance, we feel that they will have to make a decision whether they're going left to the ball fields that CRC maintains or right to the shelter and the playground, but still have an opportunity to turn around, but not as easily as they drive through. In this area, we also have had a problem with ATVs, and they are going through the grass space as well as in the trails back in the wooded area. We have worked with the police department, and I think they have diminished, if not completely mitigated that issue by speaking to some of the neighbors in the area to let them know that that was not an acceptable behavior in this park. Next, we have Owl's Nest. Believe it or not, they are pulling off of Madison Road there and driving all the way through Owl's Nest to get to the playground and the space by that pavilion in the back. So we are going to use trees and wooden posts and removable bollards in this location to try to mitigate vehicles from entering. Next, we have MLK. As you see in these pictures, there is a stone wall that is already present. In the middle of that stone wall is how our vehicles or our mowers actually access the park in order to maintain it. We will be putting a removable bollard in the middle of that stone wall area. to prevent vehicles from entering that way. And also a removable bollard on the other side of that entrance forgive me, but I can't remember the name of that street, but it's on the back end of MLK on the side street there. We will also be doing wooden posts to extend access from the stone wall all the way to the corners to not allow vehicles in. Last on my slide presentation here is Vernon Woods. And we have received many comments about vehicles approaching the shelter around the playground area and in between the playground and the swings, which obviously creates a huge safety concern for us as well as for all the citizens. And so we will be lining that area with 160 wooden posts, 2 planters that we are going to put at the end of this driveway in front of the swings. Right now we have temporary huge logs in that space to try to prevent that from happening. And then a removable bollard by the playground so they can't drive up onto the sidewalk space. I know at the last meeting, Commissioner Castellini asked about Twin Lakes. Twin Lakes will be under review. That is a little bit of a unique environment. And some of the vehicles that are entering the park are more motorcycles. And the plan that we have for these other spaces will be, the wooden posts and everything will be about 4 feet apart, which will not help with the motorcycle issue. So we are taking Twin Lakes and using this time to review before next season to how best handle Twin Lakes itself. So at this time, do you have any questions for me? Oh, I'm sorry, budget. I did have one more. So the budget for this is approximately $17,000. This is not including McAvoy because of the design concerns and the contractors that will need to come out and help with that space.
So Jenny, with the green space and vehicles on the green space, what has been done to date? Are any of these, has anything actually been installed in any of these parks?
So in Mount Airy, in the oval, there have been some logs that have been placed already. We certainly use the task force of the green team to help us with that. There still needs to be some additional logs that will fill up that entire oval space itself. We have received quotes for the lumber as well as the auger to help us install those posts, and we are ready to move forward with the rest of the wooden posts.
When do you expect those to be?
Within the next month or.
Okay. You mentioned signage and marked parking spaces are being reviewed.
Yes.
Has that been completed?
That has not been completed. That is also something that we are looking at. So we can determine which spaces or which areas would need to go to a contractor and which ones we can handle on ourselves.
And who is doing that review?
That would be our staff with crews, the regional managers and the DCLs of all the districts.
When do you think that review will be done?
Parking spaces is on our, we have monthly, we have strategic planning in our sense, our district strategic planning, and I believe it is in our December so that we can roll it out before next season begins.
And you mentioned here you're developing a full sanitation plan that consists of park standards for litter control. When are you targeting to have that completed?
That is our meeting in November.
Okay. Any other questions?
So you're going to self-perform some of this. You said you're going to get an auger and you guys will, install the post yourself and so on. Is it that they are too lazy to walk from the parking lot to the shelter? Is it they're doing something with their cars? They're playing, the radio, and that's what they. I'm just curious as to what's behind their motivation to
Sure.
to drive.
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
I think some certainly feel that they are entitled to be able to drive up and unload. That, I know some of these areas are far from
Mhm.
the spaces, and they feel that they should be able to drive up to the shelter and unload. I have had requests in the past to be able to remove some of our current bollards that are in locations in order to allow individuals that are either senior citizens or individuals that have a difficulty walking that far. And then also we have noticed, yes, they are using a lot of their radios as well in their cars in order to.
And is there any citations, delivered to these folks if and when they get busted? Or is it even, call it illegal, or is there a fine associated with this?
It is illegal. We certainly have signage in some areas that said, that states that you must remain on paved areas. We certainly need to make sure that those are in all our locations to make sure it's known. But yes, there can be a citation for driving off of our paved surfaces.
And on the litter, this year is worse than last year? Is
I
that what
believe so, yes.
And it's probably worse than the year before and so on. Any sense of what's driving that?
I really don't have a sense of it, except for that I know we need to just make sure that we are looking at our garbage can placement.
Yeah, no, I've also heard the same kind of philosophies. Sometimes it's better not to have a garbage can, sometimes, yeah, so it's confusing. I would suggest, maybe reaching out to Keep Cincinnati Beautiful. They're big time into litter and may know some tricks of the trade, or potentially get some volunteers from them to help you guys clean up.
I appreciate that.
And as it relates to enforcement, you said that this is illegal. Thinking more on the pulling up into the green space, and that's important because of safety issues as well as tearing up the property itself. What is the process by which that is enforced then? Whose responsibility is it to call and who do they call?
So the responsibility of enforcement certainly lies with the police department. We are not able to provide citations technically. So it would be, I would say, responsibility of everyone. If our crews see it, then it is their responsibility to certainly call the police department and notify them that something has occurred. Our staff will at times approach vehicles and let them know that this is not something that we're able to do. But as you can imagine, sometimes those situations can become a little bit sticky.
Sure.
The police, Captain Swingley just spoke about signage in the parks to let individuals know who to call. And that is something else that we need to look into to make sure that those numbers are available. If it's not, 911 certainly is for emergencies, but we can also provide the non-emergency number throughout our park systems for anyone that may see it if our staff are not present.
So training for our staff, are they receiving training that says, here's what you do? That is happening so that they know how to handle this?
I would say it isn't a formalized training, but probably should be. We certainly have trainings to talk about safety within our parks, making sure that we have, try to have 2 individuals buddying up to make sure that there is not someone alone in a park. That's not always feasible, but we certainly, when the crews go out there, they have the communication. We just had an incident, I guess it was about 3 weeks ago, that brought to light that training is something that is more prevalent. And we usually implement this training at the beginning of our seasons because some of our seasonals that work for us don't begin until March.
Yeah.
So we try to do a park by park or region by region orientation to get individuals familiar with not only what parks they're working in, but these safety protocols that we would like to implement.
Yeah, I would strongly recommend that we have a formal training program, because as we've heard, if crime is increasing in our park system greater than what it is throughout the city. It's an important issue. As you said, our staff are not able to cite people, and they are not trained to enforce laws. So I think it's very important that we develop procedures for how they should handle issues like that. And then once that's developed, we need to make sure that we have it vetted with the police department so that there is agreement that this is how we're going to do it.
Sure, we have had a few trainings, but I can't say it's been park-wide with the police department, where Officer Epstein, who works down in the Central Business District, has come down and really spoken with our staff, mainly at Waterfront, because of a lot of the different concerns and it's such a urban setting within, city there. So I know that he has provided some of that training in the past, but you're right, it would be.
I would encourage us to collaborate with CRC as well. So if we could initiate with Parks, CRC, and the police department so that we're all on the same page.
Is it possible to just take a picture of the license plates of the cars that are illegally parked and then follow up with a citation after the fact?
Yes, that's actually been some of the guidance from the police department itself, not only for, vehicles driving, but suspicious activity so that you're not putting yourself as a target.
No, yeah, I mean, safety obviously is first. And I guess, I know sometimes those pavilions and other facilities are reserved and that we have names, addresses of these people that are reserving them. Is there, in those cases, is there a lot of litter after, left behind on those situations? And if so, I would take them off the list.
Sure, sometimes there are, but the trouble with that is that when our reservations can happen anywhere from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Another one of our problems that we have throughout our system is just because the shelter has been reserved.
It's not
does not
necessarily mean that they littered it.
Right.
You can't tie the activity to.
Right, because there are certainly times where we have to ask.
But if you
that
can, I would
individual
certainly
to-
have some
Yeah.
negative, ramifications on those that, effectively mistreat the park system.
Mhm.
And how much, labor do you spend, of that? You mentioned, cleaning the restroom, string trimming and other things that are essential, yet your staff is spending a lot more time picking up after people.
Sure, some parks take us about an hour to an hour and a half to just clean up the litter itself before we can do
Get
anything
anything
else.
else done.
So we times that by our 100 parks
Yeah.
sometimes.
A lot of labor.
It can be a lot of labor.
Yeah.
Commissioner Castellini, any questions that you've got? You're muted. Sorry.
It's very early.
Yes, I recognize that.
Okay, I would say one thing, that it appears that the lack of police is the reason that we're not able to really mitigate these problems. And I don't know what we're going to do about that. Because if indeed our parking staff can't just hand out a parking ticket, which I guess is against the law, but I'm sort of questioning why they can't be given permission to do that, a citation, I don't know how we're going to get this improved until the police force is back up to snuff.
I am certainly hoping that some of these measures will help diminish it. But we also know that putting in these measures may lead to either removal of what we're doing or vandalism because of it. So we're trying to work through all that for sure.
Well, I appreciate the update and the direction you're going. I would encourage you to, let us see once you've developed these plans, what the plan is. And then as we've said here, move forward with collaborating with CRC and the CPD and developing some guidelines for how the process should work. Great, thank you. Okay, our next agenda item is the contract renewal with 3CDC. Who is going to? Too quick.
So yes, in the past few months, we have negotiated with 3CDC on the Washington Park and Ziggler agreement. The Washington Park current agreement, current agreement has expired. The Ziggler is not to expire, I believe, till January, but we are working to see if we can create a timeline where they both get renewed at the same time so that we don't have different dates that are occurring for the same agency. We are trying to, by creating this agreement, we have become more consistent with other city agreements such as Fountain Square. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of things that we have agreed upon, and then I will allow 3CDC to present their presentation to you. So we have agreed on a 10-year term. We have established our roles, pretty detailed roles, I think, of who is responsible for what within the park, the parks themselves. We have also set parameters to identify priorities, either for maintenance, repairs, or improvements in the future, and set a pretty good schedules throughout the year in order to talk about those priorities and how they fit within our budget allocations. So at this time, I would like to welcome the 3CDC team, Steve Leeper, David Bisman, Christy Smod, and Tim Solacey. You knew I was going to get that wrong.
Thank you.
She did the introductions. I don't need to do that. We also have our colleague, Caitlin Felbus, that negotiated the lease management agreement on behalf of 3CDC. So I'm going to do a quick presentation. I know you've got a long agenda, but this is sort of worthwhile. I mean, with this is one of the things that I genuinely believe works. Your team does an incredible job. I feel like Washington Park has never looked better. It couldn't be a better time when people lead parks, but things are working well. So I thought we'd give you a little bit of timeline, history, and then just in case we all forget, it seems like a long time ago, but we closed on the financing of Washington Park back in 2010 and reopened it in 2012. Similarly, Ziggler, which at one time we thought was a CRC space, but determined that in fact Park Board owns the land. We did that, closed on that financing in January of 2015, and then opened it up in August of 17. Just to remind everybody, Washington Park, in case you forget it. Of course, the southern part of the park actually has some great bones. It just needed some TLC and some reinvestment. Of course, the north part of the park was school board property that we were able to negotiate an agreement with the school board to take that and introduce it back into the park. So it increased the acreage in that park significantly. This is what it is today. You don't realize how big that park is until you get an aerial view of it and how much it just dominates the neighborhood and adds to the neighborhood. But of course, it's so important that not only do we make improvements to our park, but we use them, we program them. Again, just to remind everybody how this got done, it was a $48 million project. Ironically, almost the exact same price that Fountain Square was. And then there's a series of funding sources that we used, including a big one, which was a new market tax credit program that we used on all three parks, actually, Fountain Square, Washington Park, and Ziggler, and then philanthropic and state money. And give you a sense about the operating budget, at least from our perspective. And we did to 2019 versus 21 because 21 is still sort of COVID related, but it's roughly on our non-COVID time frame. It's about a $2 million budget. We have expenses, revenues that come from a variety of different sources, and of course, our expenses are genuinely related to the management of the park, the physical management, the events, security. I heard you just talking a lot about security. We spend a lot of money on security, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and generally, for the most part, we have 24-hour coverage in many instances in those spaces.
And Steve, quickly, that is 3CDC, and the park expenditures is on top of that.
Your expenditures, in addition to this money, there is expenditures by the park
staff.
that does the greenscape landscaping. So I don't know exactly what that number was. I used to know that off the top of my head, but it's a significant number, and it's really worked out well. As I said, the park, particularly Washington Park, was never.
I just think it's important that we realize this, what is the cost?
That's right.
To have a facility like that.
That is right. And it's not only a cost of maintaining it, it's a cost of programming, which is critical to its success and safety. This shows you a little bit about ongoing, and I know, again, your staff has put a lot of investment in that park, but once you do it, you got to continue to maintain it. And we've put over $2 million in that park since we opened it back in 2012. The biggest chunk of that was when we put the pavilion in above the porch where the bar is, which was a good investment. And we're thinking through our investments for next year. David's already, heads up our operations, constantly looking at how we can improve the bathrooms and other things, and some investments around the porch itself.
Can I interrupt for 1 minute?
Certainly, Commissioner.
Okay, will you go back to the annual operating budget slide, please?
Yes.
And I notice a parking management fee for 2019, but not for 2021.
Yeah.
Can you explain that, please?
Sure. We take revenue from our parking assets at all three facilities. First of all, we have debt on every one of those parking garages. Above them, it's not shown on here, but Fountain Square, we have $20 million worth of debt. We have debt on Washington Park. But to the extent that there is revenue above that debt, we take it and put it into the spaces. And the reason that we don't have money in 2021 is because of COVID. All of our assets got, as you can imagine, were battered. Our revenues in that garage were significantly less than they were in 19. But that's why we put that COVID year up, the non-COVID year up there. Our goal is to get that reestablished. I don't know if we're going to try to get it in 2022. If not, we'll get it in 2023.
So my understanding then is this is revenue above what is needed to do debt service on so if there is excess revenue, you plow it back into the operation of the park.
We'll put a fee in there to the park, and then some of it goes back into capital.
Gotcha.
So we don't take it to the parent company. Now, the issue here though is, please understand that to the extent that we don't have enough money, we pay. You see, in 2019, we actually had a negative because we had a capital infusion. So 3CPC will pay that number out of the parent organization and not the asset.
Thank you. Yeah.
But
Am I being clear, Susie? Or am I confusing that?
Well, somewhat, but I think it needs to be clarified that the parking revenue is never used to defray the cost of operating Washington Park itself. That
That's
it's a
correct.
separate entity totally, and it doesn't get involved in the contract at all. Correct?
It does not. It does not. The only thing that we do is grant some cash from that asset, because we should give money from that, because if a park also feeds that asset, because people come to visit, they park in the garage, they generate revenue. So we want to give back. So in all instances, in the three assets that we have, we give money from that garage to that park space.
So you do use some of that parking revenue to defray the cost of the park?
Yeah, in 2019, it was $60,000.
Okay.
You see that parking management fee?
Yeah. Got it.
So in 2022, it'll depend, but in 2023, we definitely, I think in 2022, we're going to be much better than we are, because we're going to have a full year of music hall and other things that drive revenue to that asset. So to the extent that and it's in our interest, because otherwise it's going to be paying out of the parent. We're going to pay one way or another. It's more of an accounting from our standpoint than is anything else.
So any excess revenue generated from this will stay within the park?
Stays in the asset.
Stays, okay.
Everything is a separate asset, and we have an asset committee that everything stays within, and we're very neat about that. Yes, correct, and
Some of it goes into a sinking fund for future capital.
it'll stay in there, it'll stay in just in the cash flow, correct? I mean, this is an unusual that we're gonna actually be positive. I mean, for years, we were typically $200,000 a year. The civic spaces have been lost leaders for us. And we're fine with that. It's just a matter of degree is how much of a loss leader we can take on. I'm going backwards again. Okay, I'm sorry. So Ziggler Park, again, remind everybody where we were. This was as challenging as Washington Park was. Ziggler Park was more challenging. I'll take on that one photo was from a young man who lost his life. That pool was not used, and typically, I think the last year that it was operating in 2015, we had 1,500 swimmers the entire summer. But things have subsequently changed thanks to investments by a lot of people. This is how I put it this way. You want to hit it? There we go.
I just need to.
There you go.
There we go. Can you go back one, please? Oh, you're right. That's next. Okay, so this gives you a sense of it today. This too got an expansion. So we took over an old city parking lot and expanded it. And that's where you see the pool right now was a surface parking lot. So again, it was a good partnership by everybody involved. This was the budget. It was slightly less. It was a $31 million project. Again, when you see the city financing, it was from the TIF district. So in the case of both Ziggler Park and Washington Park, we're not tapping into citywide capital funds. We're tapping into the tax increment that can only be used in over the line or downtown. So it's not taken away from other resources citywide. And of course, we were able to get, again, the new market tax credit. And then we took on a significant debt. And this gives you a sense of the operating budget. This year, we're going to lose probably about $88,000. Again, it's part of it is that we can't introduce some management revenues this year. So it's something we're going to have to absorb. But it's a different park than Washington Park, but it's a much more active park with the swimming and the basketball hoops. We would say that it would get back to public safety. This one is probably the one where we have a little bit more challenges on. And we've been working with the police in our own private detail, but we have some things we can do come next year that I think will both some physical changes that we want to make and some management practices. We've put about $88,000 since then, and we're planning to make some improvements to the swimming pool, which technically is not part of this agreement, but from our viewpoint, it is all one and the same. This just gives you for both assets. This is where the revenues come from. Sponsorships, we sell sponsorships. First Financial may sponsor our event season in Washington Park. Our efforts in Ziggler Park is much more broader and at levels where individuals get money to sponsor the Everybody's In program, which allows for swim lessons and summer camp and other things. And then our concession income is not insignificant. This year, in that little porch and then the subsequent points of sale, we may do close to $900,000 for a year in sales. So it's not insignificant, and it adds to our ability to run this space. And then our expenses include not only sort of what, we do the hardscape, all that sort of work, but we pay for all the insurance. So we pay for all the property insurance and we pay for the liability insurance. And so people are covered, I assume in our agreement, they are named insured,
Yes.
Okay. So both our liability, which we have a blanket of like $1,500 in liability insurance, but we also have property insurance that to the extent that something gets damaged and it warrants it, we can. And we have a pretty good insurance company that helps us.
Hopefully they treat you right.
Anyway, that's what we do. And then just to give you a sense of what we do, and we try to give it, is that we do, pressure work. We do essentially the hardscape, I think is the best way to describe it, although that sort of moves in and out sometimes. And then we, of course, spend a lot of time, and Christy Simon on our team does all the events and marketing and all the other things that we do. And then we do handle security. So we do a lot of private details virtually at every event. We have private details. And we have some special details that we've been employing just because we've had some problems around the park. We do have some of our staff making night visits to ensure that the park is safe. And of course, what the park board speaks for itself. What it does primarily the softscape, but it also does some facility maintenance. It's the one that keeps our water feature, interactive water feature, which children just love. They're the ones that maintain it, do a hell of a job on it. And then just some other things. So it's been a good mix. And then some years when they make investments, where we need to make some improvements to the park, we make the investment if your budget's tight. So I think it's a good working relationship where we all try to pick each other up when need be. This gives you a sense of what the events number in Washington Park. We had 297 events, of which we sponsored 223 of them. And then the porch is open March through December. Technically, I guess we open January, February, if it's the weather. I mean, we'll open up from 60 degrees. I mean, we've only missed 45 to 50, 45 days or something. So it's a little beacon there. And then you get a sense of those activities. And then, of course, Ziggler, the same thing, a lot of activities there, 308 events. The pool, and this year, 2021, we had over 27, almost 28,000. Now, that's down from COVID. In 2019, we had 41,000. So,
Versus 1,500.
We had 1,500 in the first weekend. Now we open it up, we'll open that pool up in April. We usually try to close it at the end of September, but because of staffing this year, we struggled. We had to close it a little early in September.
You guys heat that pool?
We heat it.
Okay.
So we do it for lap swimmers, particularly in early April. We like to heat it, or late April rather. So that's the events there. And then again, it's we are going to start doing a little bit more events at Ziggler Park. I should bring in some of the neighbors, but this is a park for everybody and not just that space for the neighbors. And then, of course, this gives you some improvements that we've made, including we've made some needed improvements to the dog park. And then we work very hard with your staff. When do we just reseed instead of lawn, or sometimes we just bite the bullet and then resod it, which we did a couple of years ago. So that's a constant battle. It's a constant battle between Christy and David, as Christy wants to do the events. David wants his lawn to be pristine, so it's good tension in the office. Not so much in the household, but tension in the office. So this is just the summary of agreements. I think Jenny did a good job. It's a 10-year agreement. It tells how we allocate our responsibilities, our softscape. We want each, and we're on a calendar year. So what we want to do is at the end of the fourth quarter, so this time, we're going to get together with the staff and start planning for budgets and schedules and capital improvements. And then we both need, and I think we've both done a better job, and it needed to be both parties. We needed to improve our reporting so that you can actually see the financial results, see where everything goes, and feel like it's a transparent process here. So that's it. We cannot thank you enough for what you do for us and with us. We're proud of the relationship. We're proud of our relationship with the city. And I think it's finally something that works, that we should be proud of. So thank you. And I have no further questions.
Question I have is, when you have events, do you have more events? Do you have multiple events in the same day? Because 300 and
Yes.
some, that's either an event almost every day,
Yes.
or you've got 3 events in one day.
We have multiple.
Okay.
We'll have, so we could conceivably have an exercise class, then we can have some music, and then we can have a movie.
Okay, and you guys are all responsible for
Yes.
the program.
We do. So we have to set it up, tear it down, clean up after it, make it safe, hire the police. Yes. And then we generally get sponsors, or sometimes it comes on, depending if we don't have a sponsor, it just comes out of our pocket. And we've worked very hard at having a pretty diverse programming, so that I think people feel like it's not just serving one population.
From my perspective, I see this as a collaboration that works. I think what I am impressed by is that the two organizations who have different skill sets and different expertise. I think our park staff is the best around, and I think you can see that when you see photos and you think about Washington Park or Ziggler Park, it looks beautiful. And I do think that our park staff that we have there just, I hear comments all the time from people about how good the park looks. And then when I think about the activity in these parks, and when you talk about 300 some events at Washington and 300 and some events at Ziggler Park, Parks Department, that's not what we do. We take care of parks, we take care of infrastructure with parks. We make them look beautiful, but we're not staffed, we're not charged, we are not the experts at producing events or managing events. And I think the collaboration between the two organizations really make it work. And I say to everybody that I encounter that I think that Washington and Ziggler Parks are models for the country on what an urban park should be. I know I love going to Ziggler Park, whether it's Saturday hoops on a Saturday morning where you have a group of people there doing basketball and working with the youth of the city, or you go to the pool where you see a demographic that represents the city at that one pool. I just think it's a great collaboration. I think both Washington and Ziggler become a central park of Cincinnati. And I think the activity and the excitement that is there because of the two groups working together is what I believe a model for the country of what an urban park system should be. I just want to hear from you. I'm hoping that you're saying that you feel good about the collaboration. Things are working. You've obviously come to us and have agreed to a contract renewal that we've put together. I'm assuming you want to move forward and
I do. I think it's great. And again, I don't want to belabor this, but if the staff that you have at work, you just watch them work in that park and you can tell that they bleed it, they care. And as do ours, as do our staff and our ambassadors. So we have some in both sides. We've got good teams.
Great. Commissioner Castellini, before we let Steve sit down, questions that you might have.
Yeah, let's talk about the manager compensation a little bit. I'm not seeing that explicitly detailed. How are they compensated?
We're not.
You're not.
We lose money. Those parks are lost leaders for us. I mean, we generate people come into the park, they go into the neighborhood, they park in the garage. I mean, that's what you do. But no, we don't get it. There's not a fee. And
It's not a profit center for you.
No.
Yes.
no, and we don't charge like Jim and the management staff. We don't charge overhead into that. It's actual for direct expenditure. So there's no fee to 3CDC in any of that. Never has and never will be.
Certainly helps the neighborhood though, doesn't it?
It does.
And it really,
So
I'm going to echo what Jim says. Those two parks have really enhanced that whole area.
Enhances the real estate, helps the sales in restaurants. That's why we do it.
Yeah.
It's like, somebody gives away a department store in the mall, in the old days anyway.
Commissioner Castellini?
Well, Steve, how do you get paid? Just simply put.
We don't. I mean, this again, if you look at our budget at 3CDC every year, the general budget of full which is an $18 million budget, you will see a line item that says contributions to the civic spaces. And we have to use our developer fees, our corporate sponsorships that contribute to 3CDC, our financing fees that we manage a fund. So the fees that we earn from other things that we do pays for the parks. So it is a lot. So in this particular case, this does not make money for us. It costs money for us.
And I think what Commissioner Castellini is asking from a corporate level, 3CDC itself can have a staff, have people that they employ. Those funds come through what you're talking about, developer fees, other sources of revenue,
So
grants.
like in 2000, let's just give you for instance, in 2000, this year's budget, with $2.5 million of developer fees that we earn from our real estate efforts. We have $2 million that we earn from, we manage $150 million fund that we invest in real estate assets, so we earn money there. We used to take out $1.9 million maybe in asset fees, that 60,000 from our assets that paid a management fee. But last year we could only take out 900,000. We took a big hit because our assets was the thing that got hit the most. And then remember, since 3CDC was started in 2004, our corporate membership provides us annually $1.3 million in support as membership fees. They paid us $1.3 million then when it was 100% of our budget. It's $1.3 million now. It's 7% of our budget. But it's because of that, because of the corporate support of us, we can do what you just saw right there.
Gotcha.
But you know, it's the
Okay,
operating.
thank you.
The operating deficit that we have, we just over the years we've tried to lower it. And at one point in time it was $750,000, which was not sustainable. That included Memorial Hall though.
Commissioner, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, just one further question, just to clarify. So if you have a big deficit at Washington or Ziegler Park, you're not going to come to us and ask us to help defray that.
Never have and never will.
Thank you. That's the
Never
best
will.
news I've heard.
President, yes, I will add that, as you stated before us, this is a national example. I mean, our partnership, public-private partnership with 3CDC, not only between 3CDC and the parks, but 3CDC and the city, you know, is that shining example of a successful public-private partnership. And when you're talking about being a loss leader, it really is a corporate entity who is subsidizing a public good. And we benefit from that, our community benefits from that. It's been great partners.
And we benefit from it.
Yes, sir.
I mean, this is a privilege for us to be able to do this. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So Jenny, I assume we have before us the renewal of the contract agreements, and is it the park staff's recommendation that we approve these?
It is our recommendation respectfully to approve and enter into these agreements.
Thank you. We've been given copies of the agreements. I'm sure as part of our 250-page pre-meeting material, they were there. Are there any questions related to the contracts themselves, commissioners?
No.
If not, do I have a motion to approve the renewed contracts?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please, Mary?
President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. And again, I just want to say this is a partnership that's working. Thank you to the staff for working through the contract and with the law department for getting us legal and putting everything down. We look forward to the next 10 years of collaboration on Washington and Ziegler. So thank you.
With 2 5-year renewals, right? 2 5-year options, right? So probably 20 years.
We'll take it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here. Okay, we've got some action items here. So Kara, you want to walk us through these?
Yes, so the first action item is an award recommendation for the Hollister Recreation Area to Uptown Rental Properties. This is an item that you had tabled at the last meeting. Just to do a brief summary of the proposal that is before you, which you do have some information that you did not have at the last board meeting, is that the bidder has proposed to offer the full appraised value of the land at $1.52 million, and also to pay the full value of the tree loss at $259,000. And then while the original proposal offered for a $17,000 annual maintenance payment, we have negotiated that up to a $30,000, which will allow us to have a direct staff member. This is a project that is supported by the community. We are available as a team to answer any questions. Also present is Mr. Dan Schimberg, representing Uptown Rental Properties. But at this time, staff respectfully request that the board approve the sale of the site in substantial form to the bidder's proposal, with the requirement that the annual maintenance payment be $30,000.
Thank you, Kara. And as you recall, we tabled this last regular meeting, not because of the proposal itself, the project itself, but issues that are questions that we had related to the procurement process. I do want to emphasize that we had a special meeting that was called a special public meeting with the city manager, where we talked through procurement issues and processes and procedures as it relates to the role of the park board and working collaboratively with the procurement agency. I think we have come to a great understanding between the two groups. We're working together, and we appreciate the ability here to have the full information that we would need to be able to make a decision on this. It's a project that has been in front of us for quite a while. I know I personally support the project. I think Kara mentioned that our intent as a park board is to share some of the proceeds as well with CRC, because they currently have facilities there. Commissioner Thomas is not here. I'll remind you of concerns that she had, that the basketball court there is a very active piece of CRC property, and the community really has embraced that basketball court. So we are looking forward to the park board using some of our proceeds from the sale to reinvest in Mount Auburn and in the Inwood Park area. And CRC is also committed to reinvesting those funds that we share with them in the Mount Auburn area as well. So that's a lot of intro. Are there any questions related to the proposed sale of this property at this point?
Not from me.
Commissioner Castellini, any further questions?
No.
Thank you. We have in front of us, we've had for several weeks and months, the project proposal itself, and now we have proposed contract. Do we have a motion to accept the contract or approve the contract?
Motion to accept the contract.
And a second?
Second?
Thank you, Commissioner. Can we have a roll call, please?
President Getz?
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes.
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I just want to say again, as we stated in the last meeting, the process that we went through is very much appreciated. We had opportunities to hear your vision for this property. I do think it's a win-win-win for the neighborhood, for parks, as well as for CRC. So we appreciate the work that you all put in and look forward to seeing a beautiful development over there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Kara?
Okay, the next item will be the award recommendation for the restoration of Little Duck Creek. Cindy France, our principal architect, will do a brief introduction of the item.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The Park Board was awarded a Clean Ohio Funds grant and received donations from the Parks Foundation and private citizens to stabilize the stream bank in Bramble Park. The project was sent out as a design build RFP, and the recommended contractor for the project is Davy Resource Group. The board is being respectfully asked to approve the award to this contractor.
Thank you, Cindy. This is a project, as you know, that we, as Cindy just said, we received some state funding for this. Again, I'll bring up CRC also has some funding that they received. CRC is working in coordination with the parks. Our piece of it has more to do with creek restoration and potential trails going into that area. CRC is working on potential playscape improvement in that area. So this project, what we're being asked to approve today, is for the actual creek bed conservation work and potential trail work in that area. Any questions on
Not for
this?
me, no.
Commissioner Castellini, any questions you might have?
No,
Commissioner Castellini, would you like to make a motion?
so moved.
Second.
Okay, again, can we have a motion on the floor to approve the contract? Mary?
President Getz,
Yes?
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes,
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Cindy, for your work on this.
Thank you.
We have our next is the crown sculpture discussion, and Jenny's going to introduce us.
Yeah, so our wonderful partners at the Green Umbrella have been developing a 34-mile urban trail loop to the greater Cincinnati area called the Crown. And as part of this project, they are proposing to donate a fantastic art piece in Yateman's Cove near the public landing in the form of a Tierra bench. This bench will serve not only as a place to rest along the trail, but also to enjoy the river views, but also a wayfinding location and a place to celebrate donors that have contributed to this trail. To present the full scope of this art piece, please welcome Wade Johnson from the Green Umbrella, Jan Brown-Checo from the Creative Team Coordinator, and Tim Knapke from Bruce Construction.
Morning.
Good morning.
Hey.
So I will, follow some notes that also follow your slideshow here. It was 9 months ago when Rick Drively called me and said, can we make a bench that looks like a tiara? And I said, yes, but. And so he then told me all about the Crown. And I said, yes, of course we can do that. So the first thing that happened was a little clay model. And because I am someone, when I'm asked to do something sculptural, I like to make drawings, but I also like to make little models. So just to help people who also enjoy three-dimensional handling, I have brought that today. That was our very first model that we started talking about. So one of the things that really compelled me to want to work with this creative team that has coalesced over the last 9 months is that this is more than just the sculpture. It's a placemaker and a spot where it was just sort of like empty space, but a really great view across the river and close to the Serpentine Wall and then close now to the Crown bike path. It's also an elegant trailhead because on the wall, let's see, how do I do this? Is this forward?
Yeah.
Yes.
There you go.
Okay, on the wall of the concessions building, there will be a map that orients anybody who comes down to this site to what is there as the Crown is developing and how to use it. And then another thing that is wonderful about it is one more decorative ornament to our riverfront, which people, as they're walking along and enjoying all the parks, will see one more thing that is really elegant. And it also gives us a chance to have two really wonderful and renowned women artists who've never worked together before, work on this. That would be Suzanne Fisher and Ursula Roma. We'll talk more about what their skills are. The other thing that Rick wanted to do, obviously, this is a piece of sculpture that has the reason of being to recognize the people who have helped to create the Crown Bike Trail. And the other thing that he wanted to accomplish was to tell the historical story about why we're called the Queen City, ergo the Tiara, ergo the Crown Bike Path. So the center panel that you see there is a narrative panel, and we'll talk more about what that storytelling is. And it really is pretty exciting, I think. So looking at the plan, and you have your little model there in front of you, you can see that we have the metal part of the tiara that is mounted on top of a concrete wall, and we have the recognition panels and also the narrative panel on the inside of the tiara. We have a couple of beautiful planters that make this feel like a splendid little nook to enter and then look at everybody's names. And then I would like for Tim to talk to you about what this is in terms of a concrete structure.
Yeah, sure. So what you're looking at here is kind of the plan view of the structure itself, right? And the geometry of it is 21 foot in diameter. The blue lines you see are going to kind of be, they're sequentially spaced, so 6 foot, 10 inches. And they're designed that way to help control the cracking of the concrete, but also fit in the artwork that's going to be placed there. Here's another shot, a plan view of the footing, just kind of the overall size of it. So it's going to take up about a 22 by 16 space. We would also need quite a bit bigger space, about a 60 by 60 space for construction. Here's a look at the foundation. So we need to, first thing we would do is come in, we remove all the pavers in the area. We need to dig down 3 feet deep in order to get to frost line, tie in our rebar and pour the concrete footer.
And are you going to talk about the number of pours, your presence on site?
Yeah, I mean, we can, yeah, so the footing pour, it would be one monolithic pour, one consecutive pour. Then the bench you see there, so it'd be in 2 pours. So the bottom piece, the seat we'll call it, I guess, would be the first pour. And we'd have an 1/8 inch slope on the seat for water to drain off of and not sit there and corrode the concrete and eventual mosaic artwork. And then the second pour would be the backing. And to hide the construction joints, we're going to put a chamfer strip in there and help beautify a little bit and hide the ugliness of the construction joint. And then criticalness of the top and keeping that flat so the future artwork will fit on there nicely.
So thanks, Tim. And one of the reasons for bringing in this little model is for you to look at that cardboard at the top. That is the Ursula Roma portion of the decoration of this sculpture. She's going to be doing her metalwork, and because we're in conceptual design still, I want you to see the kind of work this is going to represent. It's going to be very lacy, and of course, structurally, she needs to be able to have her stainless steel shapes all fitting together and holding together with rigidity, which they will, added rigidity because it is in this curve. And then to match the promotional fundraising aspect of the Crown bike path, we have different gem colors. We've got the emerald, the sapphire, the diamond, the ruby, and that's it, exactly. So, but what we've got is glass panels being attached to the back of this lacy fan that will give the appearance of jewels being mounted in this crown of polished stainless steel tiara. And Ursula is making all of these elements, and they will be attached to the concrete structure with the, not just support, but the expertise and the leadership of Bruce. And Suzanne Fisher, who will be doing the back, so where your back will be on this model. You can take a look at that. It's every place from the seat up to where that groove is. That will be filled with mosaics that are designed, conceptually designed to incorporate things like flowers, bike wheels, gears, bike chains, pathways, and that is what Suzanne is going to do. The sample to the lower right is something that already exists of Suzanne, so you get the feeling of the way that she treats forms with her mosaics. And then at the bottom part of it, so the bottom part, which would be behind your knees if you're sitting on the sculpture, we will decide as a team later on after we get these 2 beautiful elements on there, do we need to sandblast any kind of pattern into that to finish the feeling of elegance around this thing that is highly decorated? Do we need to, do we not need to? So what we're doing is we're looking at 19th century bridge kind of designs that might be sandblasted into that, and that would once again be with Bruce that would be doing that. So Tim, can you talk again about this section?
Yes, a little bit more technical into the detail of the backing, right? So you see the inlay where the mosaic's going to go. So we have the 1/8 of an inch in the bottom of the seat, right? And then we have the inlay where the mosaic goes, and we would use we'd probably do custom made. We'll get the laser cut styrofoam to make sure we match the radius, the proper dimensions needed there. We will also, you can see the chamfer strip in the back there that I talked about earlier. And then the skate stop is another added feature at the front. We will add those as needed. And then we'll also, as Jan said, we'll assist all the artists in setting all of their structures and engineering the connections and doing all the drilling and things like that.
Now let's talk a little bit about the narrative panel. Also the names of all the donors are very important. Anybody who has given more than $1,000 towards the creation of the Crown Bike Path will be included in the context of this sculpture. And then as well as a story that tells how we were called the Queen of the West in her garlands dressed by the banks, on the banks of the beautiful river. That's what Longfellow said about us. And the thing that is lovely is Nicholas Longworth and Longfellow only met because of Longworth's wonderful sparkling Catawba wine. Longworth was brilliant. He is he's a great model of Cincinnati entrepreneurial genius. Not only was he a lawyer, a banker, a landowner, but he also was a botanist and he had a great garden. He lived in front of what is now our McFarland Park and the Taft Museum. That was his home. And so he had this fabulous garden. He opened it to the public, and this was unusual back in those times. He also developed all of Eden Park with his vineyards, where he grew his Catawba grapes. And it was a little bit by accident that his white Catawba wine, which is very popular with all the German immigrants, he discovered the champenoise method of when turning the bottle, it would become sparkling. And so he won many awards, not only in North America, but also in Europe. So this genius of making things happen would send cases of his sparkling Catawba wine to notables all around North America and Europe as gifts. And then because Longfellow was really a wine enthusiast, he wrote an 11-stanza poem about wine. And then the closing stanza was about how wonderful the sparkling Catawba is that comes from the Queen of the West and her garlands dressed on the banks of the beautiful river. So it's important that we acknowledge a city founding father, as well as this interesting play of marketing and creativity for a product that distinguished Cincinnati very early on as an important entity. Now, because I want everybody to understand that what looks like little teeny tiny ants going across a board really is 18-point type. This will be the size of people's names. And so when you come inside this little enclosure, you'll be able to read easily. And then these are mounted at 4 feet and then down to 2 feet. So it's legible, it's very present. And we feel like, well, you can get 400 names. And obviously there'll be some kind of hierarchy. Green Umbrella will put this all together for us in terms of the hierarchy of the amount of support given to the project. So that is that. And unless anybody else on the team has something that they would like to say, this has really been a pleasure. This has been a pleasure to work with these people. We have not known each other before this. So for me, especially in a period of COVID, to have the ability to meet in person, the ability to think creative thoughts, the ability to think about people being on the bike path and getting out and doing healthy things has been such a blessing. So I want to thank the team here. I want to thank you for listening.
President Getz, I'd love to add, it's been so much fun working with the Crown Network. This is a network of trails that touches the Cincinnati parks in so many areas, and to be able to kind of focus at this moment on this wonderful asset, bringing this into the park, and to be able to work with Jan. And I know Jenny and her team have been wonderful assets to the Crown as well to kind of put this all together. And also a special thank you to the city's procurement office who allowed us to procure this, both the statue, that's sculpture, oh my goodness, the sculpture and the footer to acquire that as a complete in-kind donation. So I think, Jenny, if you want to wrap up what the ask is.
Sure. So yes, staff respectfully requests the board to approve the acceptance of this in-kind donation, the Crown, the Queen Tiara bench, valued at $121,450.
Well, I'll just add to Kara's comments. The Crown initiative is such a great thing for the city. And I think what it is bringing to this region is what people want, and that's connectivity, it's being outside, and it's trails and biking. So I think the opportunity for us to partner in any way with Crown is something that I think we're all very, very interested in. And to be selected that you would like to place a piece of art in one of our parks, I was thrilled to hear that was being requested. So from my perspective, any opportunity that we have to collaborate and work with the Crown Network is something we want to do. Look forward to continuing to work, and I appreciate Kara's involvement, and I think Jenny's as well, working with your staff.
Couple of questions. This will be about 4 feet high, the back of the,
Right.
or the top of
The top of that.
concrete.
Yeah.
Any type of special mix that you'll be pouring, or is it, some kind of aggregate, or is it?
We would probably most likely use a consolidated mix, which would give you more of like a, kind of like a precast finish look.
Okay, okay.
So yeah.
And this weight will be at what? Mile 0 or mile 1? 1.5. Just curious where that's going to be on the trail, but no, I think it's very nice looking, great design. I'm looking forward to it. I hope the mosaics can handle the freeze thaw, but I guess you guys have all figured that out, and those glass jewels will be in there pretty solidly, so little kids and
Right.
or probably more like teenagers will be able to pop them out and, grab
Everything will
this.
be welded, that all of those elements of stainless steel are all going to be welded. And Suzanne Fisher, you may know Imagination Alley already on Line
Oh, yeah.
Street,
Yeah.
which has recently just celebrated its 20th year. She's responsible for all of those mosaics.
Okay,
They went in and did any little tuck points on the grouting, but they're in great shape. And so
Good.
Suzanne has more experience than anyone in this city for the freeze thaw aspects of mosaics, and she's got it covered.
cool.
But thank you
Great.
for asking.
Yeah, no,
Very smart. Yeah.
Commissioner Castellini.
Yes, I just have one, I'm a maintenance geek, okay? So I'm curious to know what you anticipate the cost of maintaining this structure is going to be.
Well, we do have that in the bid package from the artists, and they have given an estimated cost for the cleaning of the stainless steel. I can tell you precisely. Suzanne Fisher, I'm sorry, let's do the mosaics first. Suzanne Fisher suggests that the resealing, cleaning, inspection of the mosaic bench components would be $750 as needed. And generally that's not every year. That is when somebody calls and says, well, it doesn't look right now. And then for Ursula Roma, the maintenance of the stainless steel lace work, buffing, polishing, tools, attachments, brushes, pads, materials and labor costs are $1,250. And that once again is as needed. I don't know if you have been keeping an eye on the mosaics down in the International Friendship Park on the columns. Those have never needed to be cleaned or resealed. And so one of the things that we find about public installation of sculpture and mosaics is they don't get tagged very often. And so we're grateful for that. And I don't know if there's some kind of unspoken fraternity, sorority of creatives of all ends of the spectrum, but they do not go in to damage these things. And so we're grateful to not have had to clean. You can say if there have been other things in the park system of your art elements, but.
Sure, I just wanted to add, before that question, so thank you for bringing it up also, that there will be an endowment as well created in order to help maintain these areas.
That's great.
Yeah.
Great news. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion, if you please, to accept the in-kind contribution?
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. Can we have a roll call?
President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you for presenting today. It looks like it's going to be a beautiful addition to the park, and it's a great emblem of the crown. So thank you.
What is the timing on this?
Yeah.
I think we hope to start in March, and
Okay.
then our concrete work will probably 2 to 3 weeks, and then the artwork, I think, is dependent upon materials.
Yeah.
They can't start the work on.
Gotcha.
Field
Okay.
measure and everything.
To match the dimensions and
The
everything.
reality, exactly.
Gotcha.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for sticking around.
Don't forget your
I was gonna
motto.
say, do
Oh,
you
yeah.
Does this help you at all, Kara, to keep
Oh,
that?
no.
No, okay.
You can have that. Thank you.
We're past that.
Well, it'll be good for the grand opening to see how
Yes,
it's
it will.
developed along the
Yes, it
way.
will.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on now to urban forestry recommendation. And Kara, you're going to cover this?
Yes, we have a vacancy on the Urban Forestry Board, and the individual who's being recommended for the Green Industry Representative is Mr. Mark Bombach. And his information and credentials are included, and this time we're asking that you approve the appointment of Mr. Bombach to the Urban Forestry Advisory Board.
Without objection, I'll make a motion that we approve the staff recommendation for this. Is there a second?
Second.
Can I have a roll call, please?
President Getz,
Yes,
Commissioner Castellini,
we'll come back. There she is. Susie, this is approval to recommend the Urban Forestry Advisory Board member.
You
There's
bet.
been Thank you.
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Our next item is grant application for the ODNR.
Yep, this is, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This is through the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, our Division of Natural Resources. Would like to apply for an urban canopy restoration grant. This is through the U.S. Forest Service for the purposes of tree planting. It is a 50-50 funding match of up to $25,000. They intend to plant 100 trees, so $250,000 or $250. That's $25,000. It will be matched by our staff time required for installation of the trees. We will also ensure that these trees are placed in accordance with the urban canopy assessment to ID the best locations. Primary points of receiving the trees will be Lower Price Hill and Queens Gate.
Super. And when does the application due, or have we filed? Isn't this an application, a grant application?
I apologize, our urban forestry team is not with us. They did offer to come and I said, I got it. So
Okay, that's fine.
I would say now.
Before submission of all grant expenses. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So at this time, you're seeking your approval to apply and accept for the ODNR's canopy restoration grant in amount up to $25,000.
Well, this is right up our alley. We want to plant trees, and somebody that's going to offer grants for that, I think, is perfect.
Yeah.
Commissioner Castellini, any questions?
No, thank
Can I
you.
have a motion then while you're there?
I
Do you
have
have a
one
question? I'm
I
sorry.
have one question. $250 per tree is, I thought we had priced in more that our trees cost us about $350. Is that my mistake, or is that generally when we go out and plant a tree, we figure on $250? Because I know some of it is reoccurring labor to go back and water it periodically. You've got the gator bags that you have to fill, et cetera. I thought it was a different number, but you know.
I will, as a non-expert, I will trust that our team, when they prepared this report and prepared this grant application, that a cost of $250 per tree is accurate. However, to your point, when they estimate the value of staff time, they're estimating approximately 5 hours per tree. And so that's where we are able to bring into the match the value of staff time.
Okay. No other questions?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe that when we're looking at it, the additional soil or.
Yeah, I don't know what.
You're probably correct. I mean, $250 sounds like a deal, but.
I am going to trust in the expertise of our natural resources team.
You might ask Crystal to send us an email just saying, what does it cost to plant a tree? Perfect. Well, then we have a.
You know what I'm
motion.
curious about is
What?
are the size of these trees? Does it state that anywhere? I didn't notice that it stated how big these trees were. I mean, let's face it, you can put a little guy in or you can put a big guy in and the cost is vastly different.
I will again apologize to the commissioners. Our division manager is not feeling well. And then Mr. Hunt, who is our supervisor of urban forestry, asked if I needed him here today. And again, I stated, I got this. And so I am unable to answer your questions other than to say, I do trust that our team knows what they're doing and that they would, what their approach to planting these trees Oh, look, I got a text message.
Somebody's listening.
She's watching. They're 2-inch diameters and the contractual cost for planting is $250. And then our staff would maintain care of the tree. There you go.
Got it.
Thank you, Crystal.
Very good.
Real time.
Any other questions? Can we have the roll call vote, please, Mary?
Did we have a motion in this?
I don't think we,
Oh,
I don't
is-
think we went through.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. We have a motion to approve the request to apply for the canopy restoration grant. Can we have a roll call?
President Getz?
Yes,
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes.
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Motion passes.
thank you.
Hey, Crystal, what types of trees are projected to be planted?
I will report back at the end of the
We'll
meeting.
get- See if she's still paying
I will
attention.
report back at the end of the meeting.
Excellent. We are now to some contracts and agreements. And if whomever is going to talk through these, if somebody could go through 1 through 3, and then we'll take 4 separately, but I'd like to go through 1, 2, and 3 together as a motion, if you would. So whoever is going to present this to us.
That would be me. As you know, the board has established guidelines for items requiring the review, including contracts over $50,000 or agreements with terms exceeding 12 months. And the presented contracts before you require the board's approval. And then Cindy France, who's our principal architect, will now provide a brief description of and summary of the first 3, followed by the licensing agreement prior to discussion.
Thank you.
We have received bids through the multiple award contract process to replace the roof at the administration building. The work is valued at $112,824. So that's the first item. The 3 water pumps which circulate the water in Twin Lakes are no longer functioning and need to be replaced. The total value of this work is $72,246. And this work was also procured through the multiple award process. And then the third item, several years ago, the road loop at Alms Park was resurfaced. This current project would complete the resurfacing at the park. The work will be completed with a master agreement for road restoration. And the cost of the work is $96,405. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
When, on the replacement of the admin roof, do you know when is that scheduled to start?
After we get approval, we'll have to go ahead and put together the work order, which will probably take about a month. And I'll have to find out if that's weather dependent. I think we would probably be okay to work in the month of December, but I'd have to double check on that.
Great.
And then the other issue we're having is just getting supplies and with the supply chain right now. So.
Gotcha. I want to point out and thank you for your additional work with procurement. The Twin Lakes pumps were an item that drew everybody's attention, and I appreciate going back and working with procurement assisting us in getting the cost of those down closer to what we had budgeted. So thank you for that work, Cindy. Any other questions, Commissioner Castellini or Lindner?
No.
No.
Then I'll make a motion that we approve the items 1, 2, and 3, the 3 contracts that were just reviewed. Is there a second?
Second.
Can we have a roll call vote, please?
President Getz?
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes.
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And Cindy, if you could then go over the license, it's just a little bit different agreement that I thought we would handle separately, the Torrance Parkway one. Can you tell us a little more about this?
Sure. Staff is respectfully requesting the park board to approve a licensing agreement which would allow Druffel Design and Landscape to remove invasives and beautify the walking path in Torrance Parkway and to maintain it in the future. So there's a walking path right there. They want to knock down all the invasives, and then they're going to plant a native seed mix. And then they'll come back and maintain it in the future. And that's the reason why there's a licensing agreement that's attached to it.
Perfect. And who is paying for this?
There's
work?
no, they're doing it free of charge. There's no cost to it.
That's great. I appreciate the map that you added to this. So it's basically just along from down by Columbia Parkway up towards Madison Road, correct?
Yes, and I'd like to mention that operations has been working with this contractor, and they worked through and put together the scope of work, and then handed it to me, and I took care of the license agreement portion. But this was really a great effort by the operations team to work through, and it's really going to make a big difference to the community, I think.
Great. Sounds like a great offer. Any other questions?
No, I'd just like to thank Droffel to, for stepping up and contributing. This is another great example of our supportive community.
We'll ask them to come back once the work is complete.
Yeah, and if you could, as director, send a note just acknowledging the park board's appreciation for their work in this area.
And it would be nice to get a before and after picture.
Yeah.
To see the results.
I just have one question regarding Druffel. Should they put a dollar number on this so that they know the amount of donation they're giving?
I will speak with our CFO and as well as procurement, whether or not we need to identify a dollar amount for the purposes of approving or accepting an in-kind donation. At this time, we do not have that information to bring to you. And at this time, we haven't received the value of anything. This is just entering into the agreement to allow for that. So we will determine what we need to bring back to you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So did we vote on this one?
No.
Sorry.
We need to have a.
Yeah.
I'll move it.
Right?
I'll move that we approve the licensing agreement. Second, and can we have a roll call?
President Getz?
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini?
Yes.
Commissioner Linder?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Craig, you're going to go over now some in-kind contribution review.
Good morning, commissioners.
Good morning.
So as you're aware, we do a quarterly in-kind contribution. We'll actually, Torrance Parkway would fall under that quarterly, but they haven't done anything yet, so I'll be part of this. So for in-kind contributions for Q3 of 2021, we have $8,632.25. Staff is requesting the board approve the acceptance of these in-kind contributions.
The only question I had, the large moving a sculpture from Tom Applegate resident to Alt Park, what was that about?
That was the moving of sculpture, and Jenny could probably speak to that a little more around that.
We accepted a sculpture into the parks. I was unable to be at that opening. Jenny, do you want to just very briefly speak about the sculpture that was moved? Yeah. No, I'm sorry, at Alt Park, the opening that you were able to represent us at.
Oh, sure. Clark Soul, his family came together and they moved from a private residence, a stone sculpture that was in honor of his wife, and his wife's sister actually created this sculpture. So, the sculpture was placed on in the corner of the Great Lawn. It serves as a fountain as well. It's certainly a replica of the, I don't know if you're familiar with the tiny little fountain sculpture in Hinkle Gardens here in Eden Park. This one's a larger size, but it is very similar in look. And so in honor of everything that Margie does for Cincinnati Park, she volunteers, cuts off luncheon, also volunteers with litter pickup and everything else. So he thought it would be great to dedicate that sculpture to her.
Yeah, and
So is this a Mrs. Applegate piece of work?
Yes.
Oh, sweet.
Yes, it's very nice.
absolutely in favor of this. I question why this is the first time the park commissioners are hearing about it. I would have loved to have attended, representing as well. So I would just encourage when pieces of art are placed in one of our parks that we at least are aware of it. But I personally would express gratitude to them for doing this. It sounds like a wonderful donation to the park and a very apropos appreciation and sculpture for her because of the work that she was doing. So, any other questions on the in-kind? Do we have a motion then to approve the in-kind contributions?
So moved.
Thank you. We've got a motion with a second. We have a roll call, please.
President Getz,
Yes.
Commissioner Castellini,
Yes.
Commissioner Linder,
Yes.
motion passes.
Thank you. Our next agenda item is just open commissioner discussion and comments, and I'll just open the floor to either Commissioner Castellini or Lindner for anything you'd like to bring up or discuss.
I would just like to thank Commissioner Castellini for signing up for another tour of duty here. So much appreciated.
Thanks for wanting me.
Absolutely. Commissioner Castellini, anything you have to bring up?
No, this has been a very good and thorough meeting. Well documented and so I commend staff for the job that they've done, even though they killed a lot of trees in printing it out.
Well, again, I want to thank you for joining us from your vacation time or your business time away, but thank you for getting up earlier this morning than usual.
It's not even 11 o'clock. Can you believe it?
How
But we're
about
not
that?
done yet. We're not done yet.
Yeah, we're not done yet.
Okay, I have no other issues to bring forward, so staff comments?
Yes, sir. That'll be Mr. Mers.
Good morning, Mr. Mers.
Morning, Rocky.
Nice to see you. Just a couple things I wanted to highlight for you. As you all are aware, we had the Hats Off Luncheon on October 1st. It's really a great day. We just wanted to extend our thank you to the foundation for all the work they did in putting it together, as well as for all the commissioners for your participation. We were fortunate enough to receive a batch of the baskets up here at administration, and we were able to provide one to each of our working divisions, and the managers chose employees to receive those baskets.
Great.
As a special recognition. It was very well received. You might have seen it on social media. I had some pictures, but with the remote meeting today, the logistics of the pictures didn't work out too well. But thank you, everybody, for that. Sincerely, we can't do what we do without the foundation doing what they do. A quick reminder, it's a big weekend for trees. The Relief Program tree pickup is happening October 23rd, 25th up at Mad Tree Brewing. Beyond just being fantastic partners for that program, they're lending us their site. So their new site up there on Madison Road in Oakley provides a great kind of drive-through experience. They've got places to stage the trees. As you know, it's like a record number of trees this year, 1,750. Almost all of them were accounted for, registration closed. There were about 100 left over. I think a big part of the reason for that is the species were limited. So there were down to only 2 types of tree, a white oak and a sugar
Maple.
maybe. Yeah, I should have written that down. And so they're both very large trees. So I know in talking to Crystal, they're going to look at next year what they can order. It can be highly variable depending on the market, who's got what the nurseries have and all that, but still, nonetheless, a wonderful success. The remaining trees will be planted out in parks. So we want to thank them for that, and also Macy's, who's a sponsor. And then finally, as you guys know, it's a wonderful time of year to experience our parks in person, and there's no shortage of those experiences that we're offering this year. So I'm just going to do a lightning round and run through a few of these to encourage folks to get out. We've got Fun Fall taking place at Vernon Woods on November 7th. Fall Fest at Vernon Woods on October 7th. I'm sorry.
Tomorrow,
Tomorrow.
Friday, Saturday, 23rd.
23rd, thank you. Hollow West descends on Mount Airy Forest on October 30th. They've really put together a great full day of activities there. There were a few different things happening in different parks. They've tied it all together into one family-friendly event that will go from mid-afternoon into early evening. Mad Tree Brewing is going to be part of that as well. Halloween Brew Bash at Alt Park on October 22nd. And we also have the Active Adults Fall Hiking Series taking place in several parks. So if you're a hiker and want to get out and have a guided hikes of the parks, check out our website and sign up for one near you. The Crone Holiday Show at Cincinnati Holiday opens on November 6th. And then of course, so we're all looking forward to that. And then of course, we've got still some volunteer opportunities this fall. So lots of ways to get out there and enjoy the parks, help us do what we do. If anybody's interested, check out our social media website. We'd love to have you participate. And that's it.
Thank you. Perfect. Perfect.
Perhaps one final staff update just to inform the board. As of today, both positions that we currently have vacant within our senior leadership team, our division manager of planning and design and our supervising human resource analyst are officially posted. And today, later today, we'll begin kind of a marketing blitz to attract talent. Those positions will both close the day prior to Thanksgiving. And we will conduct interviews, hopefully making selections by the end of this year.
Perfect. Anything else, commissioners? Thank you. Our next regular meeting will be on Thursday, November the 18th. And again, I appreciate the time. It was a very productive meeting, I thought, as well. So thank you. And thank you for all those that participated today. Thank you.
Thanks for your service too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With that, we will stand adjourned.